Okay, so if you've made it to this slide, you've gone through the exploration and you should have seen the effects of A and H and K in isolated scenarios. So we're going to throw all this together. As a summary here, what you've been looking at is called vertex form. And we can write these equations and we can just use numbers for H, numbers for K, or just for A, but we can also use a combination of these values. And so what you want to realize is what you did is you saw how each one of these um, variables can affect our, each one of these constants can affect our parabolas. What happens when we put them together? Well, it's exactly what you saw in the exploration. Now, what you might have noticed is that A can do two things. A should tell us whether a graph is going to open up, and that is if A is greater than 0, so any positive number. It should also tell us in the same instance if the graph should open down, and that would be if A is a negative number, A is less than 0. Now, the second thing A does for us is it tells us how wide, aka skinny, or how wide or how narrow, that would be skinny, the graph would be. Now, as far as narrow goes, that was when A is greater than 1, but we're going to put absolute value here because if 5 if an A value of 5 would make a narrow graph, so would an A value of negative 5. The only difference would be a positive 5 would make a happy skinny graph. A negative 5 would be a sad skinny graph. So still skinny, but opening down. And that's the same idea for wide. We have this absolute value here because we saw with wide, it was numbers that were less than 1. So let's say 0.3. If 0.3, that's a number less than 1. If 0.3 makes a wide graph, negative 0.3 would also make a wide graph. Positive 0.3 would be a wide graph that opens upward. A negative 0.3 would be a wide graph that opens downward. Okay, so A has two properties, but the others only do one thing. H would move us horizontally. So if we see a minus H inside our parentheses, that would mean our graph has shifted to the right. If we see plus the number inside our parentheses, so plus H, we would see that our graph has shifted to the left. So that one's kind of backwards of how we think, but the K's are pretty straightforward. If we are adding a number at the end of our equation, the graph should shift upward. If we are subtracting a number at the end of our equation, so we're subtracting K, we're going to see that the graph has shifted downward. So you're going to get a chance here to see how these combinations can affect the graph all at once. You have 3 sliders for A, H, and K. Feel free to change all of them. Feel free to just change them one at a time to see what happens. See if you can answer these questions down here, and you should be good to go.